Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Three Films and a Podcast. My name is Ben Lawhorn. As always, I am joined by Tyler Beck.
That's right. As always, here I am, ready to go. Excited.
Always. And as always, as well, Matthew Weiler is here, coming from the City of Trees.
I offer you my warmest of greetings.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much.
I accept.
Yes, it has been accepted and received. Thank you. For those new to the show, allow me to welcome you to our movie club. For those of you who are returning, welcome back to the movie club. We are happy to have everyone here. You can tell your friends and families and enemies and everyone about us. We are everywhere at Three Films Pod. We also have a lot of stuff just on our website, threefilmspod.com. We have merch, we have Patreon, we have all kinds of stuff. So yeah, you can find us there. But before we get into this week's movie, we need to introduce our very special guest returning once again, Chris from Reel Ramblin. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy you're here. Kind of sad we're not talking about a Jimmy Stewart movie, but you know, take what we can get here. So thank you so much for coming back. Tell people about yourself and your pod and where they can find you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on again, guys. It was so much fun the first time talking about J Stew, and then back on to talk a little McConaughey, and I'm so pumped for this episode. So my name's Chris Jovanovic, and as Ben said, my podcast is called Reel Ramblin, and it gets the name because I love movies and I love talking about them just as much, if not more. So I ramble on and on and on about movies, and that's what I do. So you can find me at Reel Ramblin on all the social media, or reelramblin.com. And yeah, Ben, we just recorded an episode together very recently. I've had you on to talk about Gladiator, so that's going to be coming out soon. I'm looking forward to that.
Indeed. I had a great time. I think listeners to this pod know my feelings on Russell Crowe, but against my best intentions, I enjoyed Gladiator. I had a good time with it. So it was super fun to come on and talk about it. I know. I think I might have a new Crowe Rushmore. I think I might finally have 4 movies in my Russell Crowe Rushmore. We did it, you guys, after whatever.
Okay, end the pod. Pull the plug on the pod.
This is it. It's the last show.
What a day. Everyone raise your glass. We did it.
Yeah, cheers to Russell Crowe, to all the Kiwis out there.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Yeah, as we talked about, Chris was on here for It's a Wonderful Life, which is also a movie that I saw for the first time and I really loved. That was a blast. And you were like the audience comment section during our recent MCU auction draft, which was super fun too. Like, I don't think people realize how fun it is to have people commenting that aren't there. You know, it's like, oh yeah, people are watching this and this is like kind of chaotic. So it's super fun to have the comments there. So I was very appreciative of your Age of Ultron love. Yeah. So this week we are wrapping up the Second Chance Cinema round with my selection. And the movie that kind of inspired this round, which is Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Typically, the movies that we select are movies that we haven't seen before, as you all know. We're all trying to watch new stuff. That's the whole premise of this pod. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to go back and talk about movies that we have seen that we kind of seem to be on the outskirts of as far as like the general consensus. So it kind of feels like the movies we talked about are generally liked by everybody. We talked about Joker. We talked about Greatest Showman, who, by the way, Matt, I meant to text you that I'm very mad at you because like I now recognize those songs when I go like in a grocery store and stuff. Like, I was there a couple days ago. And one of the songs, I don't remember which one always came on. I was like, why do I recognize this? I'm like, Matt, just yelling in the grocery store. But yeah, we talked about
where are you, Matt?
I blame you. But yeah, this week we are talking about my selection, which is Interstellar. I'm excited to dig into this because I have a feeling I'm on the outskirts, even just in this group here. So this is going to be a lot of fun. A little history for myself. I had only seen this once before. It just happened to be like I was on a trip with my dad and we were in France and the new Nolan movie was coming out. So it's like, let's go see it. And we found like an English version with the French dub, which was very convenient. And we went and saw the movie. And then I had my feelings about it. And I was like, okay. So then I watched it again for this pod and I was at home and in the country that I'm familiar with. And I had even worse feelings about it. So it was definitely not. Worse? Yeah, it was not.
Oh, it's like opposite of Gladiator.
I know. So it's upside down day. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I'm excited though to strap in and talk about this conversation to kind of get to the root of my feelings on this. I think I unearthed a lot of things in our Joker talk about why I didn't like that movie. And I realize now that I just don't like Todd Phillips. But I think this one is a little bit different. So as far as Interstellar, the synopsis from IMDb, I'm not as creative as Chris. I'm just going to like copy and paste whatever they put here. He came up with a great one for Gladiator. It was really good. I suggest you go listen to that episode. But the synopsis of Interstellar, a team of explorers travel through a wormhole in space in an attempt to ensure humanity's survival, which is what it is. That's the movie. Yep. It's correct. It's more than we got from Steel Magnolias. That's for sure. So it's a great synopsis. Chris, as our guest, I want to throw this to you. I kind of want to hear what your thoughts are on Interstellar, your history with it, and just your overall thoughts on the movie.
All right. This film,
someone had
pretty much it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I just want to wrap it up right now.
If that's going to be the last, if that's the last time that comes up, I'll be surprised. But, sorry, someone had to start it, like you said. So this film for me, Ben, I love that you gave a little bit of background on like your very first time watching it. So my first impression, I remember watching it in the theater, and it wasn't even because like I wasn't like, oh, the next Nolan movie's out. I just saw one of those like giant movie posters near the cinema one day as I was like walking around the mall, like Interstellar, what's this about? And that's when I did a little bit more digging, like, okay, Nolan, I'll probably like it. And I loved it. And to this day, it holds the number 4 spot in my list of top 5 favorites of all time. Whoa. I do an episode on that on Reel Ramblin, the first season. So go back and listen to that. It's a lot of fun. But a few other big blockbuster titles in that list for me. But yeah, Interstellar is number 4 out of 5. Reason being, I mean, for a movie to make it on that list for me, it means I'm rewatching it pretty much at least like once or twice every year.
Yeah.
For this, that could be surprising because, you know, the duration is pretty long. Mm-hmm. But I mean, honestly, I know I'm crazy, but like I can probably watch this every single day. Maybe that's going too far, but
hey, that's cool. I like it.
My personal experience, like it appeals to me because I feel like I've always been interested in all things like outer space, you know, even from like adolescence, middle school, high school. I remembered like taking an astronomy class because I loved outer space. And then I quickly realized like, oh, this is not what I want. We're just like doing math and charting stars and stuff.
Yeah.
But I love outer space. And, you know, as this is a Christopher Nolan led creation, it feels smart. So there's that side of it. So I like that audiences can enjoy like a flashy space exploration movie while also being challenged to, you know, consider concepts like time and relativity and what the cost of those things would mean for this family that's separated by this mission that we're going to talk about for the plot. So, yeah, that's what draws me in. And I will share an honesty moment real quick. Like the very first time I saw Interstellar, I was not crazy about the ending. I know we'll probably get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forgot what I was about to say. What's really happening in my head here is you mentioned relativity, and all I could think about was in Dazed and Confused, he keeps getting older, but they stay the same age. But here, they keep getting older and he stays the same age. And I was trying to figure out how to make that joke, but I figure I'll just spell it out.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
I love it. Landed.
I didn't have as much issue with the ending per se. I can see why it's a little unsatisfying. It all seems a little convenient, you know. I read some review or maybe it was one I watched on YouTube where they said it just felt way too packaged and convenient. It just wrapped up too easily for them, which I can see that. Their complaint was there wasn't a whole lot of like, and I actually don't agree with this complaint, but their complaint was that there wasn't enough like emotional wrap up or emotional payoff, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with, but I guess I could kind of see it. But this was my second time watching the movie in total. I don't remember the first time I watched it. I don't think it was in theaters. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't. I saw it sometime afterwards. But I felt the same way then that I do now, which is, I mean, I really like this movie. It's funny because when you put it in my head that you don't like it, you and I typically have the same opinion on most things. So I was like, wait, do I not like this movie?
Wait, I don't like this either.
I was genuinely expecting to not like it this time. And I was actually trying to find ways to not like it. But I was just like, man, I just really like this. I loved every minute of this movie. It's just that there's just so many damn minutes to enjoy, you know, like it's just such a test of my patience. And I was like, guys, this is great, but like, come on. Like I could really feel the runtime, even though I really liked it. It was like being at a baseball game that goes to like the 12th inning. You know what I mean? It's like, it's super fun, but you're like, God, I got places to be, man. This is like work in the morning. This is bullshit. And I probably would have rated it higher than I did. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. I probably would have rated it higher without that runtime. And as I was watching it, I was just like, this one movie feels like an entire trilogy. And that's just too much. And I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Interstellar yet, I'm going to spoil some things, but like Matt Damon shows up at like the 2-hour mark or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, we literally get 3 different movies within this one movie. And, you know, that's fine, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just kind of a lot. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't hate long movies as a default. Like all my top 4 Letterboxd movies are plus 2 hours. When I watched Lord of the Rings, I watched the extended cut. I liked the Batman. I had the same kind of complaint with the Batman though. It's just too long. I feel like if it's going to be that long, if it's going to be plus 100 minutes, it better be really good and it better show me some stuff that I've never seen before. And I feel like at least Interstellar did all that. Like whether or not I fully understand everything and all the different scientific concepts and theoretical concepts and the fifth dimension and all that, at the very least, Interstellar gave me a bunch of stuff I've never seen before, and it was really well done. So yeah, that's a long-winded way to say I really liked it.
4 stars.
Yeah, I mean, to go off of what Tyler said, I feel like with Chris Nolan, you can pretty much guarantee anytime you're going to watch one of his movies, whether you're a fan of his or not, that you're going to see or experience something that you've never seen or experienced before. He's going to ensure that happens. He's that type of showman. And, you know, this is no exception. I feel like I'll get into that later actually, but I think I understand the critique on like people who don't really like the fifth dimension, because it kind of feels it's so towards the end of the movie, and it's the most foreign thing in such a very grounded sci-fi story. Yeah, as grounded as you can be. I mean, it's in the future, like, but most of the stuff that you see in it like is relatable in some way. It's like, oh, I know a device that does that. I've seen something similar to this before, and so in some way, like it's grounded in that respect. Whereas like the fifth dimension, it's like, okay, what am I watching? How does this make sense in everything that I've just previously watched? But it didn't really bother me the first time I saw it. And I feel like having seen it, I was able to enjoy it a lot more this time around. And, you know, going off of what Chris said, he handles these concepts that like we just typically don't even allow ourselves to even try to think about. Like time and relativity, too confusing, like pass. I've got other things to do, other things to worry about. But now he's telling a compelling story and all of a sudden making us care about those things because we're caring about the characters in this. So it's like, oh shoot, that dude in 20 minutes of this viewing time just lost 2 decades with his family. And that sucks. And you kind of feel that. It's like, man, like he might not make it back. I mean, you know he's going to make it back because, you know, the movie's starting off with like interviews and all that. And that's the other thing is like, you could argue that things go very easily and that things just like fall into place. But at the end of the day, like in some respect, it's alluding to them succeeding. And so it's really just telling the story of how they succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if the audience doesn't know at all that they're going to succeed or they're not going to succeed at all, then maybe the stakes feel a little higher. But we're just watching it sort of unravel. So we're watching a success story, if you can call it that, because I mean, they didn't save Earth, they just saved humanity.
Yeah.
But I mean, if nothing else, this movie gave us the crying McConaughey meme
Yes, it did.
that the internet needed. We don't see so much of that anymore, but I always love it when I do see it.
It's a solid one.
I love the video on YouTube that came out shortly after this movie of it was him, and then they cut it with the Force Awakens trailer that he's watching.
Oh yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
good. But yeah, Matt, I love what you were saying about that. It's like, I think this is one of the victories of this movie is, as the audience, you feel that risk and that cost that's there like the entire time. Even if the ending is kind of weird and how they wrap it up.
Totally. And it's interesting. Like that's such the relativity thing, they keep getting older, I stay the same age thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty easy to show because you just show older people, you know?
Yeah.
But I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I mean, we're talking about the fifth dimension right now, and a lot of people's complaint that I've seen about this movie is the depiction of the fifth dimension because it's just such a hard concept to grasp. But just the fact that Nolan was able to portray, to me, a plausible representation of a fifth dimension and how that would look and how it would work and how it would react, like that's fucking unbelievable. Like it's like thinking about time as a dimension that you can move through in the same way that we move through, like, you know, X, Y, and whatever Z dimensions. Like that's fucking bananas. Like it's such a hard thing to even wrap your head around. And the fact that we see it on screen, it to me is like worth, it's sort of worth everything we went through. And I'm glad we only got a little bit of it, because I think too much more of it and it would have fallen apart, because you could start to pick it apart. Well, it wouldn't work that way. It wouldn't work this way. And it's just enough of it that it feels satisfying. And I don't know. I just don't think it's necessarily gets quite enough credit for what he was able to achieve there. Cause I mean, again, I can't even really comprehend the theory in and of itself or the idea in and of itself, you know?
I think you did a good job of like, I was thinking about like the Tenet thing where it's like, don't think about it, just feel it, you know, like that kind of a thing. It's like, oh, okay, got it. You know, it's like, he does do a good job, like the whole like pencil through the paper thing, like this is how the wormhole works. There was some good moments of that. It's like, okay, they're making sense of all this. But I definitely fall into that camp of just like this kind of almost like Deus Ex Machina, like it's just going to be fine at the end because he happened to get stuck in the bookcase and this is all good. So everything's going to be fine. And I was just like, I remember sitting in the theater and I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, this is just where he happens to end up. And like,
I agree with that. I do have that same nitpick. It's like that, like how and why. But again, like we don't even understand how this works as humans. Like our brains literally can't comprehend a fifth dimension, let alone a fourth dimension. So like,
which is fine. But like, I think I also felt it earlier in the movie when it was like, oh, NASA just happens to be located within driving distance of Matthew McConaughey. Like they just like set up shop. Like, I don't know, in case we need him, like, let's set the whole fucking NASA industry here. Like, so I like had a glimpse of that earlier in the movie. And so then when it comes back at the end in an even bigger way, that's how the movie like resolves itself. I think that's where I was just done. I was like, no, I don't like this at all. Like this is way too convenient to happen this way for a movie that has been so realistic and grounded for a sci-fi movie. I think that's my issue. I know that's my issue with the movie. Like, and I think that's again why it didn't work well for me the second time. Like, I think I liked it more the first time because I didn't know this was coming. So I was like, I was into it for like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, dude, the visuals are awesome. We're getting to get into that. The music, awesome. Like Anne Hathaway, obviously I'm here for it. But then, like the last 20 minutes happens and I could just like feel myself like, whoa, like no, this is not for me. Like I don't like how this is going right now. But I mean, it sounds like, maybe it is kind of a common thought among some people, but maybe not enough to ruin it. But for me, just on the rewatch, it almost just kind of made it like, I don't know. It's so weird. Like, Chris, we just talked about how it's great in a script when like you set something up at the beginning so it pays off at the end, which this did, but I didn't like how it did it. It's like, no, this is like, it's not this. It just didn't work for me at all. And so it like, especially like, it almost like doubled down. It's like, well, once I know what's going to happen at the end now, like this isn't working for me even more. I still like all the in-between stuff. I love like the visual of like TARS and stuff like that. Like all that stuff is super cool. We can talk about that more, but I know for me, it's like, it just ended. It really just like soured on me, it's like, so that's what it is. But at the same time, it's like, it's Nolan. So it's kind of like, even though it's my least favorite, it's still a technical achievement. It's still a good movie. And I'm aware of that. It's just, it's not the rewatchable one for me. So I don't know.
Sounds like we're going to have to wait till Third Chance Cinema.
I guess so, come back for season 3 when we watch this again. We'll if it gets any better.
Third time's the charm.
Everything I'm about to say isn't me trying to talk you into liking the movie. Like, I can totally understand. I just think it's so interesting how we do this. And when I say we, I put myself in this category, like we as people, like we keep calling this a grounded sci-fi movie, which I mean, it is. For the most part, it's pretty easy to comprehend. Like, you got to go to space. Time works differently. That's fine. Like, we're in the future. The Earth is fucked. Blah blah blah. We get all that. And the story itself, the family story, the emotional story, is all relatable and understandable. But at the same time, we're making a lot of leaps as far as our disbelief is concerned, with buying into the fact that they can do all this, the docking procedures that we see, like all the technical, the scientific achievements, like all this stuff. Like, we buy into so much, and then there's just this one thing that cuts it off for us and it falls away. And I don't mean that as a criticism of you, but I just think it's interesting how everyone has that threshold. And for you, that was the threshold. For me, I was just like, I can't believe we're even seeing this, so I don't even care. And it's just interesting how the same thing can affect people different ways.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I agree, because it's like, maybe if this movie had lightsabers in it, I wouldn't be as weirded out by the fifth dimension, or if it had blasters. But the fact that this was like, for me, kind of just like an elevated Apollo 13, where it's like, yeah, we know that these things can dock like that. Like, this was crazy when he has to like spin it as fast as the other thing. Like, that's like kind of nuts to think about. But there wasn't any of the fantastical side of sci-fi, I guess, so that's why maybe I keep calling it grounded, because I didn't see anyone like levitating somebody else or something. It was just the sci-fi of like, yeah, like 1 hour here is 7 years on Earth or whatever, it was like, oh, okay, cool. But I mean, it's a fair point. Yeah, that was just like, for me, that was a cutoff. And maybe just because I didn't feel like I had been led up to that point to think like, oh, this is possible. I know they'd been talking about the fifth dimension, but once I finally saw it, or, it just, again, it's like, really, like, it just happens to be behind the bookcase. That's where the fifth dimension is for you. Like,
super convenient.
Okay, like, yeah. So I don't know. We'll talk about it some more. I know I have some more stuff once we get into the trivia, but yeah, obviously we've established that Interstellar didn't like necessarily hit me like it did for a lot of people. But one thing that I just like, I can't deny, is the cinematography and the score. Like, they're both beautiful. They're both like just like great. So I feel like with Hoyte van Hoytema behind the camera, he's done Tenet, Her, Dunkirk, Spectre. Coming up, he's got Nope, the new Jordan Peele movie. He's also doing Oppenheimer for Nolan again. And then we have like longtime Nolan collaborator Hans Zimmer, who everyone is familiar with, who's done Dune, Blade Runner 2049, Inception, the whole Dark Knight trilogy, and most importantly, Cool Runnings. I think that's what we all know him for.
That's
so funny. That soundtrack. But yeah, I mean, so this movie,
did he write the bobsled team song?
That'd be pretty, like, feel the rhythm, I can see Hans Zimmer saying that. Like, I don't even want to do an impression of him, but I just like
Jamaica, we got a bobsled team. I hope he wrote that.
Hey Hans, you dead, man? Yeah. So anyways, this movie though, I mean, it was just like, yeah, visually and just like sonically amazing. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that stuff, specifically the cinematography and score. So Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts. Like, I feel as someone who could watch this every day, that's part of it, obviously.
Oh yeah, man. You know what else I could watch every day though? Cool Runnings.
Yeah, buddy.
There we go.
Yeah,
You just
that's right.
reminded me. I may go watch this right after. Yeah, great. Interstellar, great visuals and sound. A lot of what we've been talking about already. And for me, the biggest feast for the senses moment really comes near the end of the movie in the sequence that we've been touching on a little bit already, that black hole sequence. I mean, honestly, it's like Tyler and Matt, Ben, we've all been saying what comes on the other side of the black hole, people have issue with that, including Ben, and that's fine. Like, I get it. But all the same, like, no other film that I can think of has brought the audience into a black hole and made you feel like you were in it yourself. I mean, that's just unheard of. For me, like, it's crazy how the visual effects and sound editing in that scene are masterful, where everything just cuts. And it's not like an example of great sound editing where, like, there's a lot of sound happening. It's the exact opposite. Like, Coop is suspended in nothingness, and you hear and you feel and you see that.
Yeah.
So for me, that was like probably the biggest victory of the movie in terms of visuals. But yeah, there's so many other examples. How about you guys?
Man, I don't really have too much more to contribute here. I feel like I'm just going to be a parrot. Like, yeah, it looked awesome, sound awesome, because it really did. Like I said, like, I'm glued to the screen when I watch this. It's like 5 hours long or whatever, and you can't take your eyes off of it. And there's a lot of stuff that you're watching in here that you know damn well is CGI. Like, they're not in space. All these different things. But
Yeah.
for me, honestly, I couldn't really tell a lot of the time. It was so well done and so. I think they did. I don't know for sure, but I think they did a lot of practical effects. They did a lot of stuff practically, which helps. So maybe the CGI was kept to a minimum. There was some things about the CGI that we'll talk about later in trivia, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's an absolute achievement, and it's the one thing you can guarantee from a Nolan movie is it's going to look great. Like, everything you're seeing is going to be done so well. So despite what other qualms people might have with Nolan, I think it's eye candy, man. I will say real quick before we move on, Hans Zimmer, he's great, whatever, the score's fine. But like, my biggest complaint about any Nolan movie is always the dialogue. Not the words that they say, but just the way. It's something about his direction and the way that he cuts it. All the dialogue feels, I honestly don't even know how to articulate it. It feels like all of his, gosh, man, I genuinely don't know how to articulate it, but every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's the thing I don't like. It always feels like the movie is rushing. It always feels like it's just like pushing and pushing and pushing and going and going and going. So you always feel like you're playing catch up, and it always feels like you are, again, this is all my opinion. It always feels to me that you're like flying into a conversation and then you get that bit of it and then you fly off to the next thing. So if the camera is our spaceship, we go over these two characters talking, we hear what they're talking about, and then we go on to the next scene and hear what they're talking about. Never really feels like cohesive. It just kind of feels like one giant montage of a bunch of conversations that seem to connect. And I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone other than inside my head, because it barely makes sense to me. But I've always had a problem with the way that he like cuts and directs his dialogue, despite what they're saying. Like, a lot of the stuff they say in this movie is really cool. And I know, Chris, you're going to talk about a specific moment later, but like, there's some really pretty words, like it's really well written stuff, and it's really, but for whatever reason, it just never lands for me. But
I think I know what you're saying. So if the dialogue's a spaceship up here, and this is the planet right here, and it's orbiting over here, then
yeah, totally.
It's like the fifth dimension of dialogue.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
I genuinely don't know how to articulate the way I feel about it, but I just feel like you can never quite. I'm going to stop trying because I really don't know. But
I have a somewhat related critique of Nolan movies that I've seen, and it's less about the dialogue itself and more about the sound around the dialogue.
I
feel like whether it's Tenet, whether it's Bane on Batman, or Matthew McConaughey at the first half of this movie, like mumbling on Earth, like I can understand the words Matthew McConaughey's saying, but the way the sound is, it's just like kind of monotone, and like I'm having to focus like super hard just to hear what he's saying.
You know what? I think that's it, man. I think it's because he mixes his dialogue and the rest of his sound at the same level. And a lot of times it's either one or the other. Like you want to hear the chaos going on or you want to hear the dialogue happening.
That might be it. Because
that's got to be it.
I was having to hyper focus on what he was saying, and it wasn't him mumbling. It was totally the sound design or.
Yeah.
I don't know who to blame. I'm going to blame Nolan.
See, I kind of thought that was just a McConaugheyism. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert with the.
Well, that's the other thing is like I've seen and heard Matthew McConaughey in other movies with no problem, but this is a recurring issue in Christopher Nolan movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, we saw Tenet together, Matt, you know, the drive-in, and I was like, I don't know if it was my car speakers that made this like I couldn't understand it, or if it was just the movie. And then like taking it home once the Blu-ray came out, I was like, oh, I think it's just the movie. Like it didn't feel that much clearer, you know, in watching it.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, you know, a lot of these things I think get mixed for theater sound systems, you know, and then we take it home on our TVs that have like two speakers. It's just like all coming out of one thing. It's like, oh, this I cannot like. Yeah, I think it's why subtitles.
They have to do the once test. Remember that when they mix their record and then they go drive around in the car and play it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they
cut
they
to the scene
on their
Ben.
Little.
Nolan, if you're listening,
like
and subscribe.
We got the hot tips here.
Tyler, I was trying to like latch on to what you're saying with the dialogue, but
me too.
I'm going through the movie again in my mind, and I'm connecting to it about as well as Matt Damon docs with the endurance in this movie.
That's fair. I think honestly, I think Matt nailed it. It's just there's no separation between dialogue and what's happening around you. So like the dialogue just doesn't pop out in the same way that it does in literally every other movie that I've seen.
There's no like sonic hierarchy.
Right. That's all one wall of sound, which is cool, I guess. I mean, I really like Nolan movies, so it's not that much of a problem for me, but I always hate the way the dialogue hits me in a Nolan movie. So
yeah,
I don't know why.
I do connect with what you said about score, though. I kind of had that in my notes after watching this again. Is like Hans Zimmer, we all know he's amazing, but in this movie, that wasn't like one of the highlights for me. It's not an incredible score, like blew me away. You know, it's good, it's okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that stands out to me is there's kind of a sequence again, sort of near the midpoint. I don't know. We talked about Matt Damon coming in at the 2-hour mark or something.
Yeah.
Around that scene where like he's fighting with Coop on that planet, and then everyone back home on Earth, the siblings are like fighting on the farm. That is where Hans Zimmer really brings it to that higher level. It's kind of just in that one scene for me in the whole movie, but you feel that tension being built, and I love that. Like even with the organ, it's like arpeggiated notes, and they're just on full blast. The din, 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 and everyone's just like fighting for survival. I felt it there, but the rest of the movie, you know, it's okay.
That's funny because this is one of the Nolan scores that I like listening to the most. I really enjoy this score. Yeah, quite a bit. I think Hans Zimmer did a really good job with it. I think I feel like Hans approaches all the Nolan films as like a new challenge. You know, because
he was specifically asked to for this movie. Apparently, I don't know if you were going to talk about this later, but they specifically asked him to make something new and unique. They said it's time to reinvent. So take everything you've done and throw it in the bin and start fresh.
I think that's rad. And like Dunkirk, where he kind of creates like the always kind of escalating music, you know, to like do with the tempo and everything. And then I know it's not Nolan, but even like Dune, like creating new instruments, like I think it's great. So yeah, I really enjoy this score a lot. Obviously the visuals are just like kind of breathtaking, especially like going through the wormhole, all that kind of stuff. Like, and I don't know, the sound design I think was wonderful. So I loved all that. I mean, we talked about McConaughey. Oh, what's up?
Have you seen the Screen Junkies Honest trailer of Interstellar?
No, I don't think
No.
I've seen that one.
Man, they have a funniest moment of it probably is talking about Hans Zimmer and what he did to create the score for the movie. They said something basically like he fell asleep on his organ. There's a
Yeah,
lot of just shots of like McConaughey looking out a window or something, and it's just
it's just the same noise. Yeah, I like that a lot.
yeah.
Witness a visual masterpiece that assaults your eyes with breathtaking effects and assaults your ears with emotional swells that sound like Hans Zimmer fell asleep on his organ. Damn it, turn it down! I can't hear my own epic voice!
1. Booster ignition.
But it
Yes,
works.
the old mumbling McConaughey. I mean, he's obviously the leading man of this movie, but man, we had a solid stellar cast, an interstellar cast,
Hey.
surrounding him, including our favorite Nolan staple here, Michael Caine. So yeah, I just wanted to hear who you guys would give your Apollonia Award to, which is an award we give to basically our favorite co-star, someone who isn't the protagonist. Kind of came from us watching Purple Rain and Apollonia stealing the show as much as you can from Prince, and Morris Day, but
Yes!
she's kind of what, lasted from the movie outside of obviously the soundtrack and stuff. I think Apollonia has become its own thing. So yeah, that's why this is called our Apollonia Award. So Chris, I'm curious, who would you give your Apollonia Award to?
So for this one, I almost went with Tars or Case just because they had so much flavor. I mean, they were complete characters on their own.
Mhm.
But I landed on Mackenzie Foy as young Murph. Simple reason being, I feel like the biggest emotional beat, or maybe beats, I feel like there's a couple really big hitters in this movie. They don't hold any weight without what she establishes with her acting as young Murph. You have to have that father-daughter relationship, separation, and the pain that's there, and she really does a
Totally.
good job selling it, I think.
Yeah, that's solid.
It's totally believable, man. Like, you really believe that that's a father and daughter that are just connected at the hip. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you really
100%.
can feel the love for each other. It's beautiful.
Have you guys seen Mackenzie Foy in anything else? The only other movie I could think of is Nutcracker in the Four Realms. I didn't see it when it first came out. It looked kind of weird, but I watched it, I don't know, a few months ago, and the movie was terrible, but
Oh,
she
nice.
was the best part of it. She
Oh,
was a
nice.
phenomenal actress, so looking
I don't
forward to
like
seeing her
remember
more.
her, but I know I've seen The Conjuring, so I guess I have seen something with her in it. I guess it looks like one of the biggest things she's been in is she was in both the Breaking Dawn Twilight movies. Is
Mm,
it Renesmee? How do you say that? I don't know how you say that name, but anyways, I guess she was in
Not a
that. But
clue.
yeah, I've seen Conjuring, so I guess that's it. But she was great in this.
yeah, she's really good.
Matt, who's your Apollonia winner?
Oh man. I mean, without a question, it's gotta be Dr. Mann. It's gotta be Matt Damon.
Nice.
The thing is, I mean, I remembered most of this movie from a general standpoint, but nothing has stood out to me more than his arc.
hmm
And his arc is just like so chilling because on one hand, like he's still being altruistic in a way, doing what he thinks is right,
Yeah.
but he's still like, I mean, so are the protagonists in the story. And
Yeah.
and I think like what makes him like such a bad guy is how immovable he is in his convictions. And well, and I mean they bring in honesty into this too. Like
Yes.
his dishonesty, it's that that argument about ends justifying the means. Like in his
Mhm.
mind,
Mhm.
at whatever cost to complete the mission I will do, even if it means doing all these, universally immoral things.
Yeah.
I will do these things because the mission is that important. And so I think that was an interesting way to sort of embody that into one character.
hmm
And, he's Dr. Mann, some symbolism there. But his arc stood out to me the most. And so, yeah, I gotta give it to him.
Is he
I
our
mean-
main antagonist of the movie, or is it just like the world coming to an end? Because we don't
think-
see him a ton,
I think time is the main antagonist of this
right?
movie,
Yeah,
honestly.
time's probably
But yes,
But he's the-
personified.
yeah.
Go ahead,
But-
Matt.
Yeah, I think you guys are right on point. I think time is the antagonist that they're all fighting against, but he's like the big big hurdle,
Yeah.
that they have to overcome and it really like, almost destroys their chances to do it.
Yeah,
So,
he's
He
one of
did his
the
damnedest.
he really did. He's one of the first ones, like, this has become like, I don't know, a go-to answer, I guess, when it comes to antagonists, but it feels like, Killmonger. It's like, oh yeah, I understand why he did what he did. And I felt that way about Mr. Manx. Like, yeah, if I was there and I ended up on an ice planet, I'll be like, yeah, no, guys, come. There's so much cool stuff here. Like, everybody, please come. This
Yeah,
is
it's the
so
best.
cool. Like,
We've got candy.
I totally get it. I would not just be able to sit there and be like, well, it just didn't work out. I had a 1 in 12 chance. Oh, well, I was like, no, like, you guys, oh my God, there's so much flora and fauna here. Like, yeah, so there's space deer. Like, I don't know. Everybody come check it out. So I would do anything I could to get off that planet. So I don't blame him at all. But it is like, it's a very powerful, 10 minutes that we have with him. He plays it really well.
And
Is it only 10 minutes?
I mean, probably like cutting back and forth. I'm sure he's like the whole sequence. He's probably there for about a half an hour, but
Okay.
I know we keep going back to Earth, but I feel like on screen time at most, I feel like we have 15 minutes maybe with Damon, something like that. But
that 10 minutes, Tyler, is 3 years.
Yeah, it's 3 years.
True.
We'll have the intern rewatch it and find out how many minutes it is exactly.
Yeah.
Tyler, who's your Apollonia winner?
Well, I agree with Matt. I actually agree with both the picks so far. They're great. My favorite thing about the Matt Damon pick is, for me, when he came on screen, I'm like, fucking Matt Damon? I forgot he was in this, and I was like, he shows up this late? Like, what? Yeah. Does he need a new house or something? Like, does he owe Nolan a favor? Like, what is happening here?
Nolan's got some
he knew what he needed to do.
Yeah.
Maybe he was supposed to be the Matthew McConaughey character, but he had time commitments, so Nolan squeezed him in. So I have no idea.
I thought originally that this was supposed to piece together with The Martian, like it was like a built-out universe thing. But
was it really?
Apparently
really?
not. I don't know. Can we settle that right here now? Is this the new Nolan verse?
That's the headcanon that I cooked up in my head. I was like, oh no, he's just doing the Martian thing, but
yeah. Where does Nick from New Girl fit into this, Tyler?
Yeah.
Nick is still, he's in the loft. He's just watching everything on TV, man. He's not a go-getter, but he's a survivor, he finds his way.
It's all about surviving.
But honestly, Chris, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, I thought Jessica Chastain was great. I thought Anne Hathaway was really great. Anne Hathaway was in my favorite scene. Well, maybe not my favorite scene, but a scene I'll talk about later. But honestly, I think I have to go with TARS. Chris, you mentioned it earlier. Like, it's such an interesting droid. Like, we've seen a ton of different types of droids through Star Wars, through other different sci-fi properties. And when you first see TARS, you're like, that's the robot they came up with in the future? Like, this giant, like, paperweight? Like, what? Like, it's a doorstop. It's a metal brick. Like, what is happening here? But then when it shows all the different ways it can contort itself and change its shape and change the way it moves, and it can grow little arms, and just turn into the pinwheel and all the things it can do, let alone the humor and the way that they're able to like program its settings on the fly, and the way the actors able to portray those settings being set in a believable way. Like, it's a really cool, very well realized artificial being, and I thought it was really cool and really creative. And it's a shame that there's not like little TARS. Maybe there is little TARS robots you can buy and drive around your desk or whatever. Like, if this would have been like, if TARS would have been in Star Wars, right? If rather than BB-8, like if BB-8 was a TARS, like there'd be little TARS robots you could buy and drive around. I think that'd be pretty
Action
cool.
Figure,
I thought it was awesome. Yeah. Totally.
That'd be cool. Yeah, TARS was my answer too. I thought TARS was awesome. I'll also just give a shout out to Crushmore, Anne Hathaway here. I think she did a great job, but TARS just being like, kind of the comic relief and all that kind of stuff was good. And, as much as that last act didn't work, like, that does play into some of the emotion when McConaughey, when Cooper and TARS are talking to each other about the whole fifth dimension thing. So yeah, I think that was done really well. Plenty of trivia with this movie. So much that we could talk about, but I just kind of want to hear maybe some of the stuff that stuck out to you guys about Interstellar. Chris, did you have any trivia that you wanted to bring up?
So for me, it's the practical effects when you talk about
Yeah.
outside trivia, like behind the scenes stuff. For example, I did not realize that Tars and Case that we've already talked about a little bit here, they were essentially like puppeteered rather
It's
than
bananas.
CGI. I know. And then like another thing was the dust storms that you keep seeing around Earth. They were created using like giant fans blowing
wow.
synthetic material stuff.
Hmm.
So that stuff was just unreal to me. Like Ben said earlier, you watch a movie like this, and by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, okay, that was cool, but like CGI, great, not as impressive maybe as, but a lot of this was practical effects. And I just thought that was really cool. Good on you, Nolan, and the team there.
Yeah, I guess.
Good
I mean,
on
this.
you, Nolan.
Thanks, by the way, to kickassfacts.com. That's where I got those
Oh, nice.
behind the scenes facts. Yeah.
Shout out kickassfacts.com.
What
I
a name
watched
for
one of the behind the scenes thing. I guess they actually like planted all that corn and they did it like somewhere up north in Canada and like a place that doesn't normally grow. I don't know. It was really interesting, but they were able to, even with all of the field they had to burn, they were still able to like sell all the corn, the rest of it, to like offset the cost, which was like
That's cool.
kind of crazy to me. But that wasn't even my trivia fact. Bonus trivia fact.
Hey,
Free
bonus.
one.
Nice.
Yeah. Tyler, what's your trivia?
Well, I like that ours are bookend, or they're next to each other. They're not bookends at all. That's my misunderstood word of the day.
Bookends?
Every episode I have to say something confidently that is
I like it.
false.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyways, I like that our trivia facts are next to each other because mine's all about the other end, about the CGI. I was going through reading some stuff, and apparently when they created the CGI for the wormhole and the black hole, Dr. Kip Thorne, who is the person whose method of space travel they use to base everything off here, like he's a physicist, and everything he wrote about space travel is what they use to base everything about this movie and how the space travel would work.
Is that
Anyways,
Rip Thorne's brother or no?
I'd Rip Thorne's cousin, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
You would
Nice.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
Anyways, so Mr. Thorne, Rip's brother, Rip's cousin,
Rip
collaborated
Thorne,
with the visual effects supervisor here, and they used Dr. Kip Thorne's data to make a new piece of software to create the imagery for the black hole and the wormhole. And that CGI that they created, that picture they created, actually helped in turn. It helped Dr. Kip Thorne. It helped him in his research. And not only that, it took some of the individual frames of that imagery. Just one frame themselves took up to 100 hours to render, just one frame.
Whoa.
And I know if you're watching this or listening to this, you know something about movies, but typically a movie is filmed at 24 frames per second. So that is 2,400 hours for 1 second of imagery of that black hole. And not only that, it was 800 terabytes of data.
Jeez.
800 terabytes of data for that. That's just fucking bananas. And we don't even really see the black hole that much.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
Right.
CGI gets a bad rap for good reason, but when you can apply it in such a way that's that impressive, like, I feel like it's got to be shouted out. Like, I work with computers. Ben, you work with video. I've worked with video. I think all of us here work with video and digital media to some degree.
Yeah.
We've all used computers, and like, my phone has a terabyte of data in it, which in and of itself is bananas, but I don't know. It's just, I read that and I was like, I can't even believe that. It's just for a second of imagery. Yeah, it's wild.
It's funny. This doesn't have, I mean, it has something to do with what you're talking about, but my girlfriend and I went down like watching trailers wormhole and ended up on Johnny Mnemonic. And that movie is set in 2021. And the big thing was that his character was able to hold 80 gigabytes of information in his head.
What?
Like, whoa, 80 gigs. It's like, I think everyone's phone has at least that these days, you know, but it's just
my
crazy.
iPod had more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Had more
It's
music
like,
than that.
back then, it's like, what's an unbelievable amount? Like, 80 gigs. Can you imagine how much information that is?
Dude.
Like, no way, dude. Like, there's no way this ages poorly in 2021. Like, 80 gigs is out of this world. It's just,
you know,
really
like
funny.
30 years from now, though, we're going to be talking about like Oculus Rift like that or something. You know?
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, 800 terabytes, that's all it took? Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, how about you?
So my trivia would be, I in an interview, I had watched Timothée Chalamet talk about his role in this movie. And this was, I haven't refreshed my IMDb of his, but this was early on in his career.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't done a lot. This was going to be like a bigger break for him. And he was very excited about it. And then when he saw the movie and saw how little he was actually in it in comparison to what he recorded or what was shot, he cried because he was so disappointed.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Sounds
Tim.
about right.
He was trying to find his way in the world.
Old
buddy, you'll have your day.
Yeah.
And the next bit isn't so much trivia as much as it is just like observation, how interesting. I mean, some might say that this movie was relevant even when it came out, and it probably was. It's not like the climate situation is a new thing by any means. And in 2014, it was certainly here. But I thought it was interesting in the discussion with the school, Matthew McConaughey and the two, the principal and the teacher at the school, when they're talking about like space flight and the moon landing and how essentially like they wanted to just like toss out the textbooks and just, adopt, these myths about space travel.
She brought this in to show the other students the section on the lunar landings.
Yeah, they throw in my old textbooks. She always loved the pictures.
It's an old federal textbook. We've replaced them with the corrected versions.
Corrected.
Explaining how the Apollo missions were fake to bankrupt the Soviet Union.
And favor farming, which is like a Band-Aid solution over like trying to solve the bigger problems and science, like reject science. Like, man, this feels like this is more appropriate this year than it was in 2014.
It's crazy.
Totally.
Yeah, with all the stuff that's going on now, books getting bans and CRT, all that kind of stuff. It's crazy the stuff that's going on. But it feels like, in the movie, like their arm got cut off. It's like, here's a Band-Aid. Let's all just be farmers. Like, no, this is not going to solve it at all. But my trivia also, I think, kind of ties into my thoughts on the movie, and that is that originally, I guess, Spielberg was supposed to direct this.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was attached in 2006, and he hired Jonathan Nolan to write the screenplay, and Jonathan Nolan obviously has proven himself to be a really good writer with Memento, Prestige, Dark Knight, did the Westworld series, so very good writer, and I think that comes across in Interstellar when you can understand his dialogue. But I think for me, I was talking to Ashley about this, and it's like this, I want to see Spielberg's version of this, because I think also what is missing for me is the emotional connection to any of these people. It's like maybe the fifth dimension would work better for me if I cared about like Jessica Chastain, but I don't, because all of a sudden she's just like there, and apparently she works with Michael Caine, and it's just like, oh, okay, like, I don't know, like part of it's like, I wish we could have seen, like, we didn't know that she was going to work there, and all of a sudden she's just working there. Like, oh, I wonder if this would have worked better if we saw like Michael Caine kind of like taking her under his wing, because like he lost a daughter and she lost a dad. So it's like, oh, now these people are pairing up on Earth, but suddenly it's just like, oh, she's 30 now. And it's like, okay, like I get that that's like frustrating, but I just didn't have the emotional connection. And I kind of just was thinking about that. It's like E.T. It's like you care about Elliot and E.T. and, Close Encounters, all this kind of stuff. But in this, like, I didn't necessarily even care if McConaughey made it back. I was just like curious if he would, but I didn't feel like the emotional attachment, which just made me think like that's Spielberg's whole thing, sometimes to a fault, that it's just like all about the family and the emotion and stuff. So I just would have been curious to see his version of it. Maybe it would have ended up like Ready Player One, where it was just all, technology and whatever, and was still missing that. But, the prime Spielberg back in the day is like, oh, I wonder if that Spielberg would have shown up and really done more with like the family dynamic, like maybe we get more of the Anne Hathaway stuff and her relationship with, I think it's Edmonds or something like that. So I don't know, just in retrospect, like I wonder if that would have worked better for me if I was more invested in these people's personal lives. And I think Spielberg's really good at that. So anyways, that's my trivia.
Nice.
Now we're going to take a quick trip over to our drive-in double feature sponsored by good friend of the pod, Adam Driver.
I just had sex. I'm about to eat nachos. It's the greatest moment of my life.
I'm kind of curious what movie you guys would pair up with Interstellar in your dream double feature. So we get to show two movies. You get to pick the order and any connection between the two that you want. So, Chris, what is your double feature?
Yeah, so I paired this one up. I paired Interstellar up with Wall-E. And
okay, yeah.
Wall-E's going to be up first. Let the kids who are, at the drive-in enjoy. And then after it's done, they could go run around and play or fall asleep or whatever they want to do.
Nice.
And then you've got the main feature up with Interstellar. But I chose Wall-E because honestly, I feel like it's a pretty similar premise. All things considered, with how Earth is in danger, and then what do you do with that? I do like the difference being I like that in Wall-E, they kind of get to go back and reclaim Earth instead of just giving up on it and having to go to plan B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
that's a great
pick. Yeah. I like that too.
Matt, how about you?
Well, you know me, when we're talking families, with everything to lose, I always default to The Witch.
You got to do it. Yeah. It's the family dynamics. Yeah, I like that.
No, I would go with The Martian. It was brought up earlier in this episode. Give Matt Damon the opportunity to complete the mission. He didn't get that opportunity in this movie. So let's watch him completely blow it for himself and almost for all of humanity and go redeem himself in The Martian.
Totally.
Notorious Golden Globes winner for Best Comedy, The Martian.
Was it really?
Yeah, they nominated it in the comedy musical category and it won.
There's 2 funny parts in it.
It's pretty. It has some funny stuff. I don't know.
It's well written. It's well written, so it's got funny stuff in it. But
I will say I really like Interstellar, but I did think I was like, I kind of just want to watch The Martian now. when Damon was on, because again, I was like,
come on down, Tyler.
Yeah.
Come on down.
We still got an hour and a half left. Jesus, let's just go watch The Martian. But yeah, that's a solid pick.
Your wish is my command.
The Martian's going second.
The Martian's going second. Yep.
Nice. I like that.
Nice pick. Yeah.
I'm going with. I have to disclaim this. I've actually never seen the movie I'm about to nominate, but it's based on a book that I have read. And we're gonna watch Slaughterhouse-5, and Slaughterhouse-5 is gonna go first. And the reason being is because there is similar themes about time travel and the way we perceive time and the way we travel through time in Slaughterhouse-5. And there is a race of beings called the Tralfamadorians. I don't know if you guys have read Slaughterhouse-5 or seen the movie, but they see time they can see in the fourth dimension. So the way that it's described, it's my favorite description of being able to see time and travel through time and experience time as an actual dimension and move through it. It says, I am Tralfamadorian, seeing all time as you might see a stretch of the Rocky Mountains. All time is all time. It does not change. It does not lend itself to warnings or explanations. And that depiction of being able to see someone's time, to see time as if it's just a mountain range. You can see all of it. You can see the beginning. You can see the end, the top, the bottom. You can see everything about it right in front of you. And for me, that just really made sense. And that's always really landed for me and helped me to try and think about these types of things. And so for that reason, we're going to watch the movie. We're going to watch Billy Pilgrim travel back and forth through time. And we're going to watch it first because if it sucks, we can at least watch Interstellar. And Ben, if you're with us and Slaughterhouse-5 sucks, I'm sorry. Just hang out for a little while. Maybe watch something on your phone. Not going to be a good night for you. But yeah, I think that's the direction I would go. I've always wanted to watch the movie, so it'd be a good time to do it.
Man, if only there was a pod about watching new movies. Maybe someday.
Someone should start that.
For myself, I want to go out on a high note. So I think I'm picking another 3-hour movie, but we're going to watch Avengers Endgame. Just with the idea of let's time travel to solve the problem.
Who told you that?
Star Trek, Terminator, Time Cop, Time After Time,
Quantum Leap,
Wrinkle in Time, Somewhere in Time,
Hot Tub Time Machine,
Hot Tub Time Machine, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Basically any movie that deals with time travel.
Die Hard? No, that's not one.
And that's probably my favorite version of it. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I like I like doing that. So yeah, time travel to save the day. Before we get into our favorite Christopher Nolan movies, I do want to find out what you guys would show people in order to sell them on Interstellar. What would be your elevator pitch? You know, you're on the elevator with someone, you got your phone out, you've got a couple minutes to show them something, be like, you guys should really watch this movie. Here's a little clip of it. So I want to know, what your elevator pitch would be. Chris, I'm gonna throw it to you first.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Yeah, so I chose the scene in which it's like the eve of Coop's mission, right? He's already talked with NASA and he's going on the mission. And then it's like that night or something, or the next night, he's talking with his father-in-law, played by John Lithgow, which he didn't come up in the
I was just gonna say,
category.
He needs to be shouted out.
He's just such legendary status. I guess
he's the best.
If we get a road trip movie with John Lithgow and Michael Caine, I think that'd be super fun just to watch those two guys. It's just like I'd watch that in a heartbeat.
Anyway, sorry for the rambling habit.
No, I love it.
So McConaughey's chatting with his father-in-law about the state of the world, really. And I feel like it gets really deep here. He says, "We used to look up and wonder about our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt." Man, like that.
Yeah.
That single line, for me at least, like that single line not only establishes the mission and the momentum of the story, but it also, if you want to look on a deeper level, like it encourages audiences, at least for me it did, to like look inward and examine your own place in life. I mean, Matt, Tyler, Ben, are we just trudging through life, or are we keeping our eyes on our
unfortunately
dreams and goals?
yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. But we'd like to say that we're constantly looking up,
Yeah, we're trying to solve the biggest problems of today by starting this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's what this is all about. How do we solve everything?
Good start.
Matt, what's your elevator pitch?
So mine, I already talked about the scene. It's what sticks out to me. It's personally what would probably get me to watch this in a heartbeat. Not that I needed any help watching this, but I would take the peak scene, the climax of the fight of Matt Damon and Matthew McConaughey. Just seeing these two astronauts like fighting over each other, and then Matthew McConaughey's gasping for air. And I just love the line, like Matthew McConaughey's continues sort of like maniacal monologue as he's like walking away, like, I can't watch this, but then he like turns and he's like watching it.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
yeah,
I'll never forget this way. He's like, do you see your children? Is it happening?
Jeez.
I'm like, what a bizarre, like, this is like, I love those moments where I'm like watching, like, I've never seen anything like this or heard anything in this context.
Yeah.
This like astronauts watching this dying astronaut on this ice planet, and he's saying, do you see your children?
It's like
some diabolical shit.
Yeah, very diabolical.
Yeah.
I've never hated Matt Damon more than in this movie because of that.
I know.
So good. I do like Matt picking the scene with a Matt and a Matt in it. I think that's.
I try to pick Matt scenes.
That's every time you try to work it in.
If it comes up and there's an opportunity, I will pick a Matt scene.
My favorite character, Matt, he does this thing. Yeah, exactly.
Let me talk about Matt again.
Tyler, what's your elevator pitch?
So I don't know why, but whenever I think about this movie, ever since I saw it, the first thing I always think of is the scene on the water planet. So I've got to nominate that. It's like, even now after having just watched it recently, even with how much I love how the fifth dimension was able to be portrayed on screen. Chris, I think your scene is great. I think there's a lot of probably better scenes, but one thing I do like about my scene is it shows the way in which Nolan's able to show you something alien, but have it be accessible, right? Like when you think about traveling through a wormhole and going to a new planet, like there's infinite numbers of ways that could be portrayed. We've seen it in Marvel movies. We've seen it in Star Wars movies. We've seen it in all these different things, but for whatever reason, this planet seemed very plausible and like very understandable, but so alien in the way that the water moves and the way the wave comes through and all that stuff. So it was like a good combination of something that you can like understand and grasp and still be completely foreign and completely alien. And it's super dangerous. And I thought it was really clever how, the astronaut they were trying to save on that planet's timeline had only been dead for like a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the movie, in their timeline, she'd been dead for what, like 30 years or something. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good introduction if you're trying to sell someone on it. It's an easy way to show them like, no, you can grasp most of it.
Mhm.
The ending, you know, all bets are off. Who knows if how the ending's going to land for you? But at the very least, you're going to see something alien, but it's going to be understandable. And I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I think that'd be, and I mean, it's really great stuff from Anne Hathaway. We get some really great stuff from Tars, maybe the best stuff from Tars
Yeah.
here. So I don't know. I think it's a good scene, but I think all the scenes that have been talked about so far are really good. I don't think you can go wrong, really.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how fast Tars is on that scene. Like, oh,
Right.
he can haul ass if he wants. That's cool.
Totally.
And it's like one of the first times I think we see just how like I don't know if flexible is the right word, but just like kind of creating the arms and then like the legs
Totally.
like rotating. Oh, like this is a very like mobile robot.
It's when
and it doesn't
you
look
finally
like it.
see like, oh, they will. Okay, that's why that's why they have
Yeah.
this version of a robot. It's not a BB-8 ball, or it's not
Yeah, exactly.
a droid with arms and legs. It's like, oh, it's
Mhm.
very, very functional.
Yeah, mine is basically just the wormhole scene. All goes back to the visuals. That's the thing I think about every time when I think about this movie. Just as we travel through it, and then we get to the other side, and just the way the visuals like change from like the spherical fisheye lens to just like now just being like, you know, the normal view. I'm like, oh wow, that was very cool. You know, what would that be like? Like you feel like you went through it. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
now all of a sudden you're just on the other side of the universe. It's like that's kind of crazy to think about. So yeah, as much as the ending doesn't work for me, it made me think about the Mitch Hedberg bit. I was like, do you want an apple? It's like, no, eventually it'll be a core. And it's like kind of how I feel about this. Like, do you want to watch Interstellar? It's like, no, because I don't like the ending of it. But I can say that out of the 11 movies Christopher Nolan has directed, feature films, this is in my top 10. So I can confidently say that.
Take
but
that. The following.
Yeah, take that.
I do want to shout out. I love a good space docking scene, or just any
Mhm.
like docking scene. Like I think there's one in Top Gun where they have to refuel in the air. Like
Yeah.
all that. I don't know why, but just that tension of the things coming together, and maybe it's because there's
cool.
like sexual undertones and I'm a deviant. Who knows? But
Yeah.
Ben's
But
gonna
we-
cut you a compilation of docking scenes.
Ooh, please do. And
What
and
I,
we get the cool spinning docking scene. I was like, the first one was good enough. They could have not showed me another one. And then we get
Yeah.
the spinning scene. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And what I take from that spinning docking scene is a line that I now use regularly in life that Matthew McConaughey says. One of the robots, there's a case or TARS, is like, that's not possible. And then he says, no, it's necessary.
Yeah. Really, yeah.
I try to
really
use
line.
that as often as I can in life now. When someone says
That's a
something's
cool
not
line
possible,
because
no,
it's
necessary.
like it's a really cool line, but it's also kind of corny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it works
It's
both
so
ways.
good.
That's
Only McConaughey can pull it off, really.
Yeah,
Totally.
100%. Well, I think it's time to wrap this up with our trip to the Rushmore Mountain.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
This week, keeping it pretty straightforward because I really just kind of want to find out where everyone falls on the Christopher Nolan train. So we are doing our top 4 Christopher Nolan movies. I feel like we're gonna definitely have some repeats. You know, it's gonna happen when a person only has 11 feature films, but I think everyone kind of is familiar with at least some Nolans. So I'm kind of curious to see where we all end up with this. And Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. What are your top 4 Christopher Nolan movies?
To no one's surprise, Interstellar is going to be in my, I guess if there's a number one
It'd be
slot
so
out of
funny
the
if it
4,
wasn't.
that's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's number 5, actually. It's like right outside. But yes.
You did say that Interstellar was your top 5.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
Movies of all
plausible
time,
that the
yeah.
other 4 movies in your Rushmore could have been ahead of it, and they could have all been Nolan. So
Ooh, yeah. Off the top of your head, can you name your top 5 movies of all time?
Yeah. Number 1 would be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If you're going to
my
make me
man.
choose, Fellowship.
which
would
one
be
though
the best out of the
specifically?
3.
Oh, Fellowship.
Yeah,
Okay.
Fellowship of the Ring.
I'm a Two Towers guy.
Okay. Good choice.
I
Number
love the
2
Two Towers.
is Last Samurai.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 3, Tron Legacy. It's kind of a out there goofy choice, but I mean, I like
It's your
daily
list.
Unsung
video
gem.
games growing up, so
Yeah.
that movie is just like a lived-in video game to me.
And one of the best soundtracks of all time.
Oh man, I listen to that washing dishes. I mean,
I love that.
yeah. Number 4, Interstellar, and then number 5 is Napoleon Dynamite, actually.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It's the only comedy on my list. Just a lot of good memories watching that when it first
It's
came
an
out.
eclectic
and everything,
mix. I like it.
Yeah, it's a well-rounded
Yeah.
list.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for the Rushmore, I've got Interstellar. Batman Begins is the one I chose out of the 3 for me.
Nice.
Memento, and then here's the thing. I originally put Inception up there, but then shame on me. I completely forgot about The Prestige, and I love that movie. So am I allowed to do a quick
Hey, it's
switch?
all whatever you want to do.
Okay, it may be a repeat, but I'm putting up Interstellar, Batman Begins, Memento, and The Prestige.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Solid picks.
I like that. I'm really due for a Prestige rewatch because I have a feeling if I'd seen it more recently, and I think the only time I did see it, it was like on TBS and I was at work, and you know what I mean? It's like a cable watch, and I don't know. I don't think I fully appreciated it, so I definitely need to rewatch it. I have a feeling it would land on my list, and it would be a repeat of yours had I rewatched it recently. But having said all that, I'm going to go with The Dark Knight, Inception, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but pretty close. I mean, for me, The Dark Knight is like far and away. It's almost like not a Nolan movie. You know, it's almost like its own separate thing. And then he has all of his like Nolan movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, Dark Knight, Inception's for sure number 2, and then Interstellar and Dunkirk might be interchangeable for me, but I really like both of them, so that would be my.
Can I ask you just real quick? We don't have to spend a long time on it, but
totally,
why Dark Knight over the 2 others?
It's solely because of my personal experience watching it. It was actually at a time in my life where I've always been like a movie enthusiast, but this was when I really started to get into stuff and researching and knowing who directors were. And this was the first time I remember there being like noticing the hype behind an upcoming movie. We have a friend, his name's Adam Palcher. He runs a different podcast. He's the Podfather. He's been on here a bunch. I'm sure you've probably listened to episodes with him on.
Oh yeah.
He's the one that showed it to me, and his son, Caden, was playing the trailer on repeat the time I was over there hanging out with him. And so I watched that trailer just 100 times with his son, Caden. And then when it came out, I saw the movie with his brother-in-law, Chris. I don't know, whatever. But I just had such a great experience with it, and I genuinely think it's the best of the 3. Having said that, I've only seen Batman Begins once, so I should probably revisit that as well. Yeah, just the heat of it all, the hype of it. It was the first time I was able to experience the hype and then have the movie be better than the hype. And it just it's just lived in my head ever since then. It's been one of my favorite movies ever since.
Nice.
So The Dark Knight's on the top of my list as well. And similar to Tyler, his assessment of The Dark Knight, it feels separate. The Batman movies feel separate from Nolan's filmography, but I mean, they're Chris Nolan movies. I have a lot of reasons why I like The Dark Knight and why it belongs there, but just to put it simply, I'd probably rewatch The Dark Knight more than any of his other movies. And so like for that reason alone, it belongs, in top spot, just because it's the one I could watch the most, at any given point.
Yeah.
Followed up by The Dark Knight, I would put Interstellar. I really do love this movie. Then I'd put The Prestige. Interstellar and Prestige might be interchangeable. I haven't seen Prestige in a while. And then I'd follow that up with Inception. But I did want to note that when we watched Dunkirk, Ben had us rank our top Nolan movies, and I documented mine in Letterboxd. So I went to reference my Letterboxd list, and it's almost identical to Ben's ranking right here.
Nice.
And so I mixed it up just based on how I feel right now, because I feel like even if I did that list right now, this would be it. But when I pulled up the list, it was like, oh, this is Ben's list. Except I have Inception instead of what Ben is going to say.
It's interesting because I'm looking at Nolan's filmography, and he has 11 feature films, and I honestly could say like there are 8 of them that kind of feel like they could end up in the Rushmore. I guess 7, like Dark Knight is a lock, but the other 7, I honestly could let's swap it out. Just depending on how I'm feeling that day. Memento, sure, that was awesome. That was one of the best real show up on the scene movies that I've ever seen. Tenet is like a technical achievement. That's amazing. I loved it. I think Batman Begins is up there for the best origin comic book movies out there. You know, it's like it's there for me with like Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, like first Superman, you know, like it's just it did a great job, especially what it was coming up against, you know, or following, I guess is the right phrase, of Batman and Robin. Just like, we're doing another Batman movie, like we don't need these. And it just like it was great. But all that being said, none of those made my list. So mine is The Dark Knight. Again, a lot of it's just the heat of it all. It is on my letterbox. It's in my top 4. I have 3 locked in favorite movies of all time. And then Dark Knight is filling up that 4 spot. And it is solely on like the rewatchability. Like if I don't know what to watch, I will just put that on. It's like a weirdly like a comfort. Like I don't have to be watching it and I know what's going on. You know, I can visualize it. So I do love that movie. Inception. You know, one of the things we used to ask people in our clubhouse is just like, if you could go back and watch a movie for the first time, and Inception would be mine. Cause like, that's just one of the most memorable, like movie theater experiences I've ever had. Prestige was great. I think it's so interesting what he pulled off in between all of these Batman movies. Cause he did Prestige and then Dark Knight and then Inception and then Dark Knight Rises and then Interstellar. It's like that back and forth with all these was really kind of cool to see. And Prestige just really floored me. That ending still hits really hard. And then I wanted, again, like I could do any of these movies really, but I'm going to go with Insomnia because I don't hear about it quite a bit. It is a remake. I think it was a Swedish film, but man, we get a really dark Robin Williams in this movie.
That movie is really, really good. And when I saw this on your list, I actually always forget that was a Nolan movie. It might have landed on mine if I'd remembered. But I watched that in high school, not knowing anything about it and not knowing what it was going to be. And it's fucking awesome. And I think it could be a nomination for an Unsung Gems round because I don't really hear anything about it ever, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I love that movie. I think it takes place in Alaska or something, but it's during the time when like it's sunny for like 20 hours of the day. So Al Pacino's character coming from LA isn't used to that. And it's like making him really weary, and obviously the insomnia name, but Robin Williams is great in it. Al Pacino and Hilary Swank. Like I think the 3 of them really just, they're a great trio for that film. So yeah, I just don't hear about it a lot. So I wanted to throw out Insomnia there for anybody who hasn't seen that.
Totally.
But yeah, that having been said, does anybody have anything else they want to talk about with the dark, or what are we talking about? Interstellar, Dark Knight. Let's talk about Dark Knight right now. Episode 2.
I just want to say again that as much as I love this movie, it's kind of like Tyler mentioned earlier, Ben, not trying to change your mind about it. I wish that you liked it more, but at a certain point, it's like the movie can only speak for itself so much. But I love all the emotional beats. I love the epic scale of it. I love the visual effects, everything we talked about. One thing that I had in my notes was like, I think Matt was talking about Timothy Chalamet, and like it took this time watching it again, like this past week after seeing it, I don't know, maybe 20 times. It's like, holy crap, it's Timothy Chalamet. Like,
I had no idea.
I forgot that he's in this.
Totally.
Yeah. He's not over on Arrakis yet. So
exactly.
But I thought he did okay. He got limited screen time and he cried about it, whatever. But I do think that was nice to be able to bring in to bring in what's his name? Casey Affleck. That was actually like, I feel like that was perfect casting, being the aged up older version of Chalamet. They both have kind of a similar acting, like, I don't know, get this guy a cup of coffee acting school sort of where it's real, just like level, mellow. Yeah, good for Chalamet. He was a good part of the movie overall, but McConaughey, I think, drove this one.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
100%. I did just want to shout out, I forgot to look it up before we started recording, but we did hear from some of the movie club about their favorite Nolan, so I'll make sure to shout that out in the show notes. We appreciate everyone sending that in. Tyler, do you have something before we wrap it up?
I do. Like a lot like Chris, I'm not going to try and talk you into liking the movie. I'm sorry that you didn't like Interstellar, but it'd be a whole lot cooler if you did.
Thanks, everybody.
Boom! McConaughey!
We'll see you next week. No, just
I don't know. We just like liking things.
Yeah. Liking things. Chris, do you want to give your plugs for Reel Ramblin before we wrap it up?
Yeah, real easy. So check out Reel Ramblin at either reelramblin.com or any social media outlet. Listen to the pod, subscribe, follow, talk to your friends about it. keep watching movies too. I'll encourage you on this show as I do on my pod as well. Just that's what this is all about. I love being in this community with you guys and all the other people who love watching and talking about movies. So thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, and we will see you all next week.
Criminals in this town used to believe in things. Honor, respect. Look at you. What do you believe in, huh? What do you believe in?
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you